Hey everyone, it's Microwave Sam. It's been such a long time since I last made a video, and so for this one, before I get started, I'm going to say that I've been watching a lot of my old videos and going through a process of self-analysis, seeing what I can improve as a tutorial guru. And so the one thing that I'm going to try to put before the tutorial even starts is a table of contents, because a lot of times I've found that most people know what they're doing. So if you know what you're doing, you don't need to stay for the whole video. Your time is precious, and I don't want to waste your time, so here's the table of contents on the left side. For this tutorial, it's a Cygwin ultimate setup for a Windows machine. Here are the things that I find most useful for me, and kind of the essentials that I like to have when I'm using Cygwin on a Windows machine. So if you can't see this, you can pause the video, look at what I've listed at the left side. I'll zoom it in. First up is packages. What packages do you need on Cygwin? Second up is useful stuff. Some things like git-completion, auto-completion, apt-cyg, which is a package manager for Cygwin. Adding some things to bashrc, which allows you to have shortcuts, a command shortcut like desktop, which for me moves directly to my desktop on the terminal. Tabs and hotkeys. Cygwin does not come with tabs, believe it or not. So you need to use an extra program called Console2. Skip ahead if you want to just add tabs to your Cygwin terminal. And last but not least, integrate Cygwin with command prompt. As you may know, command prompt is the default terminal on Windows, and you need to use different commands for changing directory and listing the contents of a folder. So you might want to have Cygwin commands integrated with your command prompt. So that's what I'm going to be doing on the tutorial. If you want to stay along for the ride, let's get started. First thing is, we're going to open up Google Chrome or your internet browser. Cygwin.com is where you're going to visit, and the first thing is downloading the setup file. Now, I'm going to assume that you have a 64-bit installation, because if you have a laptop kind of 3 years or even more, you will probably have a 64-bit installation. And if you happen to have a 32-bit machine, that's probably because you did it purposely, so you know that you have a 32-bit machine. But for everyone else, get that 64-bit executable. Save it to wherever you keep your downloads, and I already have it because I already installed it ahead of time. So that's the first file that you're going to get. Now, open up that executable. I'm just going to right-click and run it as administrator. And here's the setup. First thing, hit next. Hit next again. And we're going to select our root install directory. Where do you want to install Cygwin? Now for me, I'm a desktop guy. I keep everything on my desktop, so that's where I'm going to save it. First, hit browse, go to desktop, and hit OK. Now secondly, you want to add another folder that Cygwin will create for you. And that folder is Cygwin64. 64 stands for 64-bit because we're using Cygwin 64. After you do that, you can hit next. Now you select the local package directory. Where do the installation files that Cygwin downloads for your packages goes? And where I like to keep things that stay for a while, I keep it in my documents folder. So I hit OK after finding documents, like so. Hit OK, and hit next. You can leave direct connection by default, and you can select the download site. For me, the first site works, but it might not work for you, so select whichever one works. But for me, cygwin.mirror.constant.com works, and hit next. The next screen that pops up are selecting packages. Now, opening up this notepad again, these are the packages that you will want. And what I'm going to do is install each of these packages one by one to show you how it works. But basically, just search each of these names and install it. First up is Lynx. It's in the web category. If you click this circle button once, then it will show up a number, and that's the version number. And that's all you need to do is check off this package for installation. Linux is used for, we're going to use it to download Cyg, apt-cyg, which is the package manager. It's used for downloading things. Second up, wget. Wget is also in the web category. Wget's used for retrieving files from www, from websites. Like if you want a text file, or let's say you want this resume file from a website, you can use wget to download it. Curl should be in the vel category. And what curl do we want? We want this x86_64-bit curl. So you hit the circle button, same thing as before. Curl is like wget. It can be used to download files. Next is rsync. Rsync is used for file remote transfer, so we can send files back and forth from computers, and it should be in net category. Next up is Python. Python is just that language that a lot of people use. I use it a lot, and it's a programming language if you're not familiar. First thing is Python here. If you click on it once, it should have the 2.7 version, for now at least. And then if we scroll down more, we'll find Python 3. Python 3 is right over here, and you just hit it once, and that's Python for you. Bzip. Bzip is, well, it's called bzip 2, and it should be in the vel, and we will find it here. Choose the Win64, and you can hit it once. Bzip's just used as an extracting and archiving program. Tar is also an extracting and archiving, and some files you might have seen in the past with a .tar. It should be in, let's see, it's in base category. Next up is bash completion. Bash completion is useful for using the tab button on your keyboard to just autocomplete commands. Right here, it's in the shells category. Vim. Vim is a useful text editor that I like to use. Some people are Emacs people, and there are a bunch of editors that are more friendly, like Nano. But if you want to get into kind of programming within the terminal, Vim or Emacs is usually the preferred choice. So you hit Vim and vim-common. Next up is tmux. Tmux is used for multitasking, like splitting screens. I like to have tmux. You don't have to have it if you're not familiar with it. Git is used to code with other people. It's a collaboration tool, and it's very useful if you've heard of the website github.com, and I also have a bunch of tutorials for it. It's in the vel category. Next is diffutils. Diffutils is just a suite of utilities for the command diff. Diff is used for comparing differences between files, and that's useful for, let's say, if you have very big and very similar files, then you can use diff to compare those files. Next is make. Make is integrated with a make file, and make files are used to kind of have a sequence. It's a script that's used to compile multiple things sequentially so that you don't have to compile all these files at once. It's used generally with C, C++, and those type of programs, and that programming language. So make is here. It's in the vel category. Now we will get the GCC stuff. Now GCC has gcc-core, which is the C compiler, gcc-fortran, Fortran compiler, gcc-g++, which is the C++ compiler. I like to get these three because I program and I know those languages. And last but not least, openssh. OpenSSH is used to remotely access computers that have this OpenSSH program, or package, I mean. And here it is in the net category. Now that's all there is for the categories, or packages, I mean. And after you have all these checked off, then you can hit next. And we will skip ahead in a video after we've downloaded all these packages. But it seems like since I already have it installed, it does not reinstall. So I check these two, and then I hit finish. Now the next thing that we want to do is let's open up Cygwin. Cygwin should have the shortcut on your desktop, like so. Then we're going to open it up. And the first thing that you will see is that there may be some things that Cygwin has done. Create a few files if you've never used Cygwin before. Now, we're going to move over to the useful stuff. So the first useful stuff that we're going to do is that you also might see Cygwin 64 here on your desktop if you followed suit and did the same thing that I did. This has the contents of Cygwin in it. So basically, if we do a command called pwd, it says we're at /home/myname. And if we open this and we go, there's a home folder. So that's basically where we are right now. Cygwin is contained within here. But of course, with this terminal, we can access any file on the computer. So it's not just secluded to this folder. But don't delete this folder. First useful stuff is something called git-completion. Now, git-completion is a script that's used for auto-completing. For example, let's say if I want to use git commit, then here, when I do git space c, I can tab. Well, I guess it's not in it right now because I need to do something like where I source completion. And then basically, if I tab, then it is right there. So git commit is right there. It's basically used for auto-completing git commands. So if you don't need that, then don't use it. But I use git a lot for code collaboration. So first thing that we do is follow those commands. It should be in the description. And I'll just copy and paste what I've written in my notepad. Paste. Maybe I didn't copy it. Control C. Okay. Hit enter. We're using the curl command to download that file. And we can source git-completion. Source is used to turn it on, basically. It's reloading. It's a better way of saying it. And we can use vim to open up the file just to take a look at it. It has a bunch of stuff, and you can take a look at it. It's just for auto-completing git commands. And to trigger it, you need to reload it, so you do the git-completion. Now the next thing is we need to get the package manager for Cygwin. We don't want to open that setup file every single time. So copy these commands. We're using lynx command. I'm just going to right click and paste. Oops, probably didn't copy it properly. And then hit enter. And then we will install apt-cyg into the bin. So basically I already have it, and it just says that are the same file because it already exists. What I did in the first command is I downloaded it and then named it apt-cyg, but I was already in the bin folder, so it's already like installed. And then to show you how it works, if we just do apt-cyg, we can install package names. Like nano is another text editor, and it says that package nanos are installed, so it skips. But you can use apt-cyg to install any packages by name instead of using the setup executable file. That's very useful. Now, secondly, we're gonna add some shortcuts. So we're gonna use the Vim text editor, but more preferably, if you don't know how to use Vim, we'll use Nano text editor. And what we're going to do is with Nano, basically we can use the down arrow keys. We'll go all the way down. All of these are just commented stuff. And basically what aliases are are their shortcuts. So alias space desktop right here means that it's a shortcut for CDing to my desktop. So basically when I'm using my desktop or I want to go to my desktop, I can just type desktop. So these shortcuts are super useful, and I don't have all of the shortcuts open yet. So I'll add the rest of these aliases. So one useful alias is changing directory to desktop, which is the top that I have. Then I have one for Cygwin start. What Cygwin start does is you can use it to open the folder. So it opens File Explorer. I'll show you in a little bit. And then, make it easier for myself. I'm going to copy and paste. And then last but not least, we will export the path, which just makes sure that our bin is accessible. It might be already in this file, but it doesn't hurt to add it twice. So that export command is just used to make sure that we can access anything within that bin folder. And the bin folder contains all the executable commands. So if we hold Control and then tap O and then press Enter and then Control X, that's how you save and quit in Nano. Now we'll have to source or basically reload it. So if you do this, source ~/.bashrc, I am going to add it really quickly to my text file so that I remember to add it to the description. That reloads the bashrc, and to demonstrate one of the shortcuts, let's say if I type in desktop, well, I am in my desktop right now. If I ls, I can see all the programs, all the files, they match with what's actually on my desktop. So these shortcuts are useful. You should add shortcuts that work for you, that you find useful. Another shortcut that we added was open. So if we do open dot means this current folder, where I am at the moment. And we just changed open to Cygwin start. So by doing that, it opens the File Explorer. Super useful, so useful. Let's say that we're moving around into the desktop and I don't want to open the File Explorer and then click a couple buttons. Just do open space desktop or open dot if I'm already at the desktop. Really useful. And that's just a demonstration. Now, Cygwin is really good as a terminal. I find it the best, or one of the best, terminals on Windows. But it doesn't have tabs. How can it not have tabs? So unfortunately, we'll need to have an extra program. Second link to go to. It is here. So we will download the beta right here. Click that button and download. It's called Console 2. And it will download in a couple seconds. And we will save it. Now, I'll save it to my downloads folder. And I'll open up my downloads. I'll right click and extract to console 2.2. And then what you're going to do is you're going to right click copy for this console 2 folder. I created a folder called apps right here, and then I paste it into apps. So copy console 2 and paste it to apps. So right here, console.executable. And after you do that, you can just right click and send this to the desktop as a shortcut. Let me do that again if you didn't see. Click on it, send to, and then desktop. So click that and it should send to the desktop, and I already have it on my desktop. So gonna X out of these. We don't need anything on the internet browser anymore, and it should be here. Now we're gonna double click. For me, it already opens to Cygwin because I've already configured it. But what we need to do is we need to edit and go to settings. Now, first thing that we need to do is go to tabs. So what you do is you add a new tab, and then to demonstrate how it works, I'll just add a new one. First, let's call it Cygwin. Make sure that it's at the top. So what we're going to do is move up. So it's right here right now. Make sure that it's above console 2. And for the icon, we hit that dot dot. Find your Cygwin64 folder, which should be in your desktop. And then just click on this icon. So it looks like this. So this is what we currently have. We just grab the icon, Cygwin. Now for the shell, what we're looking for is this bat file. So I just typed in cyg while in the Cygwin folder. So go to the Cygwin64 folder, and then just start typing capital CYG, and then click on that. So CYG, W, and then click on that and open. And that's the configuration. So I already have 2 of these, so I'm just gonna delete one of them because I don't want multiple ones. And then after you do that, you can hit OK. Then we're gonna hit settings again. Now hotkeys are super important. First thing is we want to add a hotkey for new tab 1. So new tab 1 refers to what was on top here. So in this case I have Cygwin on top. And I added another Cygwin which is a duplicate of this first Cygwin, because I'm using Control-Shift-T and Control-T as my shortcuts. So how these assigning shortcuts works is that first you go to hotkey, then you Control-T, and then make sure you hit the assign button. So let me just do that again. Control-T, hit assign. And that's how you do it. So what I've done is for new tab 2, I did Control-Shift-T because I'm used to Ubuntu, where Control-Shift-T is to make new tabs. Secondly, next shortcut is closing tabs. Now, we want to go to new tab 4, which is Control plus F4 already, and we just clear it. Hit clear and make sure that's done. Now for closing tab, right here, it will be something else like Control W or something. Change it to Control plus F4. So click on here, make sure you click on here, Control F4, and then assign. Because closing tabs, it's always been Control F4, right? Now copying. I put copying to Control-Shift-C because Control-C is used to cancel programs. So don't do Control-C for copy selection. And then we will just click on it, Control-Shift-C, hit assign every single time. And then for pasting, of course, it has to be Control-V, right? So hotkey, Control-V, and then assign. And then we should be good, so hit OK. Now if we X out and we open it again, Cygwin pops up. And if we Control-T, new tabs pop up. Awesome. Really, really good. Click on new tabs. It's perfect. Just what I needed. Then Control-Shift-T is also for me for having new tabs. You can Control-Tab to switch these tabs. Like for example, let's say that I go to my C drive on here, and then I Control-Tab, and then I do something else. It's so useful to have tabs. I don't know why Cygwin doesn't have tabs. So now, with console open, I pin this thing to my taskbar. Pin this thing, because you're going to use it if you like using the terminal. And you won't be using Cygwin anymore, but you'll be using console instead because of the tab capability. Last but not least, it's been a long tutorial, but hopefully it's useful. Integrate with command prompt, because, you know, maybe I'll go to the command prompt one day and I want to use ls, you know, these commands that Cygwin has, but it doesn't work. So what are we going to do? We're going to integrate it with our command prompt. So how are we going to do it? We're going to open up File Explorer, right click the C drive, hit Properties. Actually, not the C drive, but this PC. My mistake. Hit Properties. We're going to go to Advanced System Settings. Then you'll see something called Environment Variables here. So Advanced System Settings, Environment Variables. Click on it. Now we are going to find path, which is right here. We're going to edit. We're gonna go all the way to the end. Make sure that you put a semicolon, and then let's open our console. Type in pwd. Well, it's in home, so if we ls, we're gonna have to go to /bin pwd again. Okay, that's not gonna work. So what you actually need to do is you're gonna have to write this manually, I guess, because I was trying to use pwd to find something to easily copy and paste. Oh wait, I put it in Notepad, but this is an old reference. So because we put it on our desktop, you know, our Cygwin 64 file isn't over here. This is if you leave it by default and didn't do what I said. So what I'm going to do instead, I should have done this instead. So I'm going to do open dot, and what that did was, since we had that shortcut, it opens our folder in the file explorer. So I'm going to delete my name, delete home, and then /bin, enter, make sure that this is right, and then this is what I have. So I'm going to change that in my notepad, just to remember to changing in the YouTube description if you follow my directions. And that's what it's going to look like for me. The username will obviously be different for you. And we are going to open this again, paste it, put that semicolon at the end, and hit OK. Hit OK here. OK. Now let's just close all of these things. We did it, guys. We did it. We're going to open up command prompt, and we're going to ls. Yes, these commands work. I can move with Unix on the command prompt. I can do anything that Cygwin can do, or most things that Cygwin can do in command prompt. And I like to do this because it's super useful. Maybe one day I'll need a specific program only available in command prompt, like disk, some disk program, disk partition. And that's it for the Cygwin Ultimate Setup tutorial. Hopefully I get better in explaining things, and thanks for watching.